Ethan Cole had everything money could buy. Penthouse suites with views of glittering skylines, a private jet waiting at the airport, chauffeurs at his beck and call, and an empire that bent to his decisions. At just 35, he was the CEO of Cole Dynamics, a global tech conglomerate worth billions. But beneath the tailored suits and sharp jawline, Ethan carried something that money couldn't mask: emptiness. People adored his wealth, feared his power, and respected his name, but not one person in his life had shown him genuine kindness without expecting something in return. His employees praised him because they wanted promotions. Women smiled at him because they wanted luxury. Even his so-called friends laughed at his jokes only because he paid for their dinners and their lifestyle. So Ethan developed a theory: no one is kind without motive. One rainy evening, after a long meeting where he shut down a partnership proposal, Ethan leaned back in his leather chair and stared at the city lights outside his office window. His assistant, Martin, entered hesitantly. "Sir, you should get dinner. You've barely eaten all day." Ethan smirked. "Dinner? Huh, I think I'll try something different tonight." Martin frowned. "Different, sir?" Ethan rose, pulling off his Rolex and slipping it into his desk drawer. He loosened his tie, unbuttoned his shirt, and traded his suit jacket for a plain hoodie he kept for gym days. To Martin's utter confusion, his billionaire boss looked ordinary. "Cancel my reservations at La Maison. I'll go somewhere else," Ethan ordered. "Somewhere small. Somewhere people won't know me." Martin blinked. "Sir, with respect, why?" Ethan's lips curved into a cold smile. "I want to test something. I want to see how people act when they think I'm just average." The diner was small, tucked away between a laundromat and a bookstore. The neon sign above flickered faintly, its hum blending with the sound of rain on the pavement. Inside, warm yellow lights glowed, and the air smelled of fried bacon, fresh coffee, and pies cooling on the counter. Ethan pushed open the door, the bell above jingling. Heads barely turned. Unlike the five-star restaurants where whispers followed him, here, he was just another stranger. He slipped into a corner booth, running a hand through his dark hair. His gaze swept the place. Families laughed over pancakes, an old man read his newspaper with soup, and truck drivers shared stories at the counter. For the first time in years, Ethan felt invisible. Then his eyes landed on her. A waitress moved between tables with practiced grace, balancing plates with ease, her ponytail swaying as she worked. Her uniform was simple: black slacks, a white shirt, and an apron smudged with coffee stains, but her smile lit up the dim diner. "Good evening," she greeted warmly as she approached his table, not recognizing him at all. "Can I get you something to drink?" Her voice was soft, unforced, and genuine. Ethan looked up at her name tag. "Lena." "Coffee," he said shortly. She smiled again, unfazed by his curt tone. "Sure thing. I'll be right back." As she left, Ethan found himself watching. Her smile wasn't fake like the hostesses at his high-end restaurants. She laughed with customers, remembered orders without writing them down, and when a child dropped his spoon, she knelt to pick it up as if it were the most important task in the world. Ethan frowned. Was it all just an act? When Lena returned with his coffee, she asked gently, "Rough day?" He blinked. "Why, you just look tired." Her tone wasn't prying, just observant. Ethan didn't reply. Instead, he ordered the house special, curious how far this illusion of warmth would go. The meal was simple but delicious, far better than he expected. No truffle oil, no caviar, just roasted chicken with mashed potatoes and gravy. He finished everything on his plate, surprising himself. Then came the moment he had planned. As Lena slid the bill onto his table, Ethan reached into his pocket and deliberately pulled his hand back, feigning confusion. He patted his other pocket, frowned, checked his jacket. His movements were calculated, his expression carefully painted with embarrassment. Finally, he looked up at her. I don't seem to have my wallet with me." There it was. The test. He braced himself, waiting for the scorn, the anger, the humiliation. He had seen how the wealthy treated people who couldn't pay, mercilessly. Surely she'd frown, call the manager, maybe even embarrass him in front of everyone. But Lena just blinked in surprise, then tilted her head. "Oh, that happens sometimes." Ethan stiffened. "You're not angry?" She shook her head. No, I mean, it's just dinner. Not the end of the world. You're not going to call the cops, he said dryly. Lena laughed, a soft, genuine laugh that startled him. For forgetting your wallet. No, sir, that would be silly. He narrowed his eyes. Then what? You'll pay for it yourself. Her smile softened, but there was no pity in it, just quiet kindness. If I have to, sure. Or you can come by tomorrow and settle it. I trust you. Ethan stared at her, utterly unprepared for the response. You trust me? You don't even know me. Maybe not, she admitted. But I know what it's like to feel embarrassed. To not have enough sometimes. I wouldn't want anyone to sit here feeling humiliated over something like this. So, don't worry about it. Something in Ethan's chest shifted. Her words cut deeper than he expected, like sunlight breaking into a room he hadn't realized was dark. He cleared his throat, forcing his usual composure. You'd just let me walk out without paying. Yes, she said simply. Because kindness matters more than a few dollars. Ethan left the diner unsettled. The rain had stopped, the streets glistening under street lamps, but his mind was clouded. He slipped into his car, an ordinary rental instead of his usual Bentley, and sat in silence. Lena's words replayed in his head. Kindness matters more than a few dollars. Why did it bother him? Why did it feel like she had stripped away the armor he wore around everyone else? For the first time in years, Ethan Cole, Billionaire CEO, wasn't in control. And as he drove away into the night, he realized something frightening. He wanted to see her again. The following morning, Ethan Cole sat in his glass-walled office high above the city, but the view that usually gave him satisfaction felt strangely dull. Reports, emails, and profit charts blurred together. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Lena, the waitress with the tired eyes and the radiant smile. The woman who had looked at him, a stranger with no wallet, and chosen compassion over judgment. Most people in his life treated him like a golden ticket. But she had treated him like a person. Martin, Ethan said suddenly, his deep voice breaking the silence. His assistant looked up from his tablet. Yes, sir. Find out everything you can about the waitress who worked last night at Mel's Diner on 8th Street. Martin hesitated. You want background information? Ethan gave a sharp nod. Discreetly. By afternoon, Martin returned with a thin folder. Ethan opened it, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the details. Name: Lena Hayes. Age: 27. Residence: a cramped apartment on the east side. Family: sole caretaker of her mother, who was battling a long-term illness. Work history: multiple jobs, waitressing, cleaning offices at night, assisting in a bookstore on weekends. She was barely holding her life together, yet she smiled like she carried the sun in her pocket. Ethan leaned back, stunned. So that's why she understands embarrassment, hardship, she lives it every day. That night, without a word to anyone, Ethan drove himself back to the diner. The bell chimed as he stepped inside. The place buzzed with evening chatter. Lena looked up from behind the counter, surprise flickering across her face before she walked over. You came back, she said, her lips curving into a smile. Ethan nodded. I did. I owe you, for last night. You don't owe me anything, she said softly. I told you, it wasn't a big deal. Ethan studied her, trying to read her expression. It was a big deal to me. Lena tilted her head. Why? He hesitated, then deflected. Because people don't usually react that way. Her smile faltered just slightly. Well, maybe people should. He returned again the next night. And the one after. Sometimes he ordered food, sometimes just coffee, but always he lingered, talking to her when she had a spare moment. He learned that she loved books but had given up college to care for her mother. That she often worked double shifts so her mom could afford medicine. That she didn't complain, not even once. In return, he told her little about himself. Not lies, but omissions. She thought he was just another ordinary man drifting through life. And he found comfort in that illusion. But the truth pressed against his chest like a weight. Every time she laughed at something he said, every time she looked at him with warmth rather than calculation, guilt gnawed at him. She doesn't know who I am. Would she still look at me like that if she did? Dash dash dash. One evening, fate decided for him. Lena was pouring his coffee when two men in expensive suits entered the diner. They scanned the room, spotted Ethan, and rushed over. "Mr. Cole, we've been trying to reach you." The board meeting was rescheduled. Ethan froze. The world slowed. Lena's hand, holding the coffee pot, went still. Her eyes widened as realization struck. "Mr. Cole," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. The suits continued, oblivious. "Sir, the Tokyo investors." "Out," Ethan snapped, his icy CEO tone slicing through the air. The men stiffened and left quickly. Silence hung heavy between him and Lena. She set the coffee pot down slowly. "You're Ethan Cole, the billionaire." Ethan exhaled, the truth laid bare. "Yes." Lena blinked, shock washing over her face. "You let me think you were just some guy who forgot his wallet." "I needed to know," he said quietly. "Know what?" "If kindness was real." Dash dash dash. Lena pulled back, her expression unreadable. "So, what? I was your experiment." The words cut him. He had built empires, commanded thousands, but in that moment, he felt powerless. "No," he said firmly. "You were the first person in years who treated me like a human being. Not a wallet, not a name, just me." Her eyes softened for a fraction of a second before hardening again. "You should have told me." "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that if you knew, everything would change." And it had. Dash dash dash. For days after, Lena avoided him. She took other tables, kept her answers short, and slipped into the back whenever he walked in. Ethan felt the emptiness again, sharper this time. He couldn't stand it. He decided to do what he rarely did, something selfless. Through quiet channels, he paid off every cent of her mother's medical bills. He arranged for a top doctor to oversee her care. He even had his team renovate Lena's crumbling apartment, making it livable, safe, warm. He never planned to tell her. It was enough to know she was okay. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. Dash dash dash. A week later, Lena stormed out of the diner just as Ethan was about to enter. "You," she said, eyes blazing. "It was you, wasn't it? The hospital bills, the apartment, I know it was you." Ethan swallowed. "Yes." Her hands trembled at her sides. "Why would you do that?" "Out of guilt, pity." "No," Ethan said, his voice raw. "Because I couldn't watch someone so strong carry the world alone. Because you reminded me what humanity feels like. Because," he faltered, then said the words that terrified him. "Because you matter to me, Lena." Her breath hitched. "Ethan." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I spent years surrounded by people who only saw the billionaire. But you saw me, and now I can't go back to a life without that." Dash dash dash. Silence stretched between them, heavy with emotion. Finally, Lena whispered, "I don't know if I can trust you." "I'll earn it," Ethan vowed. "Not with money, not with power, but with every choice I make from this day on." Her eyes searched his, as though trying to see past the billionaire, past the empire, to the man standing in the rain before her. After a long moment, she nodded faintly. "Then show me." Dash dash dash. Weeks passed, and Ethan did exactly that. He visited the diner, not as a CEO, but as a man who wanted to listen, to learn, to be better. He drove Lena's mother to appointments, spent evenings reading to her, and helped Lena with chores. Slowly, walls began to crumble. One evening, as they closed the diner together, Lena looked at him with something different in her eyes. Not suspicion, not resentment, but something warmer. "You know," she said softly, "you're not so bad without the suit." Ethan chuckled, a sound foreign even to his own ears. "Careful, that almost sounds like a compliment." She laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. Dash dash dash. But Ethan was not a man who lived in small worlds. His empire called to him, and eventually, he made her an offer. "Lena," he said one night, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Leave the diner. Come work with me, not because I want to save you, but because I need people I can trust. People who remind me what matters." Her eyes widened. "Me, work for you?" "Yes," he said, "not as a waitress, as someone I respect." Lena's heart pounded. She thought of her mother, of the bills, of her own dreams she had buried long ago. She looked at Ethan. the billionaire who once pretended to forget his wallet just to test her, and wondered if fate had brought her here for a reason. Finally, she whispered, "I'll think about it." Ethan smiled, knowing that for the first time in years, his future didn't look lonely. And as they walked into the night together, one truth lingered in both their hearts. A single act of kindness had changed everything.